welcome to Do the Right Thing, your weekly writing prompt podcast. I'm Alexandra.
And I'm Jarvis.
Jarvis and I were aspiring writers, but we had a problem where we never actually sat down to take the time to write.
Exactly. So to try and solve this problem without us actually writing ourselves, we decided to issue a challenge. Each week you sit down and write a complete short story using 3 or 4 randomly generated words.
Then we read a story sent in by you wonderful listeners, and then we talk about what we learned in reading it. And then we discuss the rest of the stories that were submitted.
Exactamundo. We're simply here to help you do the right thing.
A doof media production.
Great.
Yep, great. I'm hoping to go to New York soon. That's exciting.
Yes. You're moving out of the big nothing of Texas and moving to the Big Apple.
Moving
of New
out
York.
of the heart of Texas. You know the yeah.
Yeah, deep in the heart. Are you excited? Are you nervous? Are you hungry?
Yes. Just all of them, yes. I've been nervous actually. Like I think I almost hope not to get acceptance from a job application just because it's like suddenly it's much more real.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I think I have one. Maybe it's not like a industry job. It's a pretty normal like warehouse thing, but it means I can move. So, that's kind of ludicrous. And also, the housing market is kind of terrible in New York right now because the pandemic is over, obviously. So everyone's moving back now that the pandemic is over. And so are all the students that go to college there. So right now, all of the cheap apartments, the student apartments, are getting snapped up. And so that makes it a little harder. So it's not a great timing. I really, really wish that I had gone like 4 months ago because the housing market was a lot better then, but it's fine.
I mean, I know that you've been talking about moving to the Big Apple for a while, so I'm really happy for you. But, I think it should be okay. I mean, I know it is extremely scary just moving in general, but you have found a couple of really solid places. Hopefully those aren't like false reports. I know you were telling me about how sometimes they'll say that they have something online, but then you would call them and then they're saying, oh, sorry, we sold our last apartment 2 years ago. But yeah, hopefully you'll be able to find something that's within your not only your price range, but hey, maybe you'll be right down there next to the Times Square. That'd be nice.
Yeah. There's a lot of not that that's a scam scenario, but there is a lot of scams that I've been dealing with. So many like employment scams. It sucks. I hate it.
Wait, what? So what is that? Is that like they're falsely putting up that they have a job opportunity? Or? So
it's basically, there's a couple of different versions, but it might be like it's a job posting, and then you apply and you give them your information, and then they text you to try to get more information. They try to get like your social security and stuff, and it's always like an offer that's like way too good to be true, Like it's like, yes, you got accepted for a $30 an hour position for something that requires no skills. Congrats. We just really appreciate our workers and whatever. Or another one, which is actually, it was an MLM thing, and for the job description and the website looks super legit and stuff. Yeah. But I did research, and the address that it's at is exactly the same address, weird, that a long series of different companies or different names that are also all MLMs. And apparently they change their name like once a year or something, just so that people can't just Google their name and find it. Yeah. So when I Googled their name, nothing bad came up. But when I looked at the address, a bunch of stuff about them being a scam came up. So that sucks. It really sucks.
Especially when you're trying so desperately. I mean, you know what? Hopefully you don't fall into a pyramid scheme. That would be pretty horrible. But yeah, I mean, hey, you apparently found a really good one, and you've already like looked into this job opportunity. Make sure that it's legit. So
Yeah, it's like a grocery service. I mean, I guess it kind of is like a multi-level. It is kind of like a pyramid scheme because I'm at the bottom, and then I sell things to people, and then the money doesn't go to me; it goes to the people above me, and then they give me money. So it's
but
kind of like
you
a
are
pyramid
being
scheme.
paid fairly, yeah.
Like
For your labor.
according to a minimum wage. It's like a grocery. It's like Uber Eats, except I don't think I'm legally allowed to say that. Maybe.
Yeah, it's like GoPuff.
Yeah, except I'm not an independent contractor, so that's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, we should do an actual. This is not the Alex's big trip to New York podcast.
Yeah, Alex stuck in the Big Apple. Home Alone 2. Alex in the Big City.
I was thinking more Curious George kind of thing.
Curious George. Yeah. Honestly, I don't remember a single thing about Curious George besides Curious Monkey and a man wearing the worst outfit I've ever seen. Yeah.
What? I kind of like it.
Well, no, because it wasn't only the like big yellow hat. He had a yellow jumpsuit.
Was it
in yellow
jumpsuit?
Pants? Yes, he had.
I just remember a jacket.
He had a yellow jacket and a yellow pants, and then he had brown shoes, and he was the most boring human being I've ever seen.
But he's like attractive.
Sure, I guess he is as attractive as a saltine cracker. It's not really. There's nothing special about it, but it tastes good.
When I googled Curious George and I scrolled down a little bit, very quickly you find an image of Curious George holding a gun, and he's like leaning against the yellow hat, which has a bullet hole in it and it's bleeding.
He did it. He finally.
There's actually multiple. There's a lot of images of Curious George holding guns. Like a lot.
Well, because I think it's the like same reason as like there were like a lot of pictures of like SpongeBob as a gangster.
Would you like a Curious George AK-47 vinyl sticker? It's only $3.
Yes,
from Neo Tactical Gear.
Neo Tactical Gear. I don't like the sound of that company, and I guarantee if you go into it, there's at least 2 American flags somewhere.
So, moral of the story: don't let your kids Google Curious George, because
just don't let your kids Google.
Yeah,
because
they
can get in a lot of trouble.
Idea, yeah. Anyway, let's do the podcast. What are the words this week, Travis?
Yeah, thank you so much for reminding me that we actually have a podcast to do. But the words for this week were fences, arrow, develop, and negative.
Great. Those are words. What's the story that we're reading this week?
Yeah, so the story we are going to be reading this week is by FlowerPriest with An Ordinary Horror.
Yeah. So I'm excited to get into the stories this month as they are nonfiction. So, FlowerPriest did include a trigger warning for general teeth stuff on their story. It's not the horrifying teeth stuff, but it is a little bit of teeth stuff. So if you don't like to listen to teeth stuff, you could skip forward like 20 minutes or something.
Yeah. Can you like really quick say that 5 times fast? Teeth stuff?
Teeth stuff? Teeth stuff?
Yeah.
Teeth stuff?
Mm-hmm. Teeth stuff, teeth stuff, teeth stuff, teeth stuff.
You're saying teeth stuff. You're saying
teeth stuff.
Perfect. Excellent. What was the why? Why did we do that?
Oh, it just sounded like a really good tongue twister.
I guess like toy boat.
Yeah. Or sit in solemn silence.
Yeah. Etc. Anyway, let's get into the story.
Can't wait to hear it.
So this is An Ordinary Horror by FlowerPriest, and it's about a dentist appointment. So, again, the warning. This was my fault, the consequence of my vices catching up to me in a bloody, painful fashion. Just relax, the dentist said, as if that were an option. He was holding a cleaning tool I have never seen before. The sharp point expelled water as it scraped off the dirt of my teeth. I was used to electric brushes and bitter toothpastes for this part of the process, but this new guy was supposed to be the best in the city, and the best came with more efficient techniques. Efficient and painful. If you move, it will pierce your gums. I moved. God, I moved. How could I not? I hadn't laid on a chair like this in almost 2 years. A global plague superseding dental hygiene. I had gotten sloppy, indulged in the wrong habits, sweet reliefs in a bitter year. And now the evidence of my carelessness was displayed black and brown on white, like a white picket fence left to the elements to rot. While he did his work, his assistant held a small tube in my already crowded mouth. Sucking my saliva before I had a chance to bother the man's work or make me swallow at an inconvenient time. You never appreciate how much you swallow in an hour until that ability is deprived of you. The normal processes of the body interrupted by modern medicine. It feels unnatural to have your mouth filled with plastic, metal, and water that never goes down. Can you blame me for not being able to sit still? The dentist's tools certainly did. The sharp point stabbing my gums every time I involuntarily convulsed, pain moving like arrows through my skull, making me move again. The dentist resorted to holding my jaw still with his other hand, gloved fingers finding the soft folds of skin in my face. I tried to keep my eyes closed for most of this. The blinding light attached to the chair penetrated my semi-closed eyelids, making me see polarized illusions of an unreal world. My eyes reproduced negative stills of a broken camera, the nausea rising in my throat, abated by the helpful sucking tube. I opened my eyes near the end to find the dentist's face staring down at me. His gaze focused on finishing his work inside me as my gums bled and obscured his view. I tried to get out of his way, even though I was literally meant to be what he worked on. This disconnect between my mind and body, the latter being a thing to be worked on, the first getting in the way of that, disconcerted me. In the isolation, I had found some common ground between the warring factions of my psyche that this simple dentist visit was threatening to unravel the fragile peace. I searched for anything to keep my mind on this, my field of vision severely limited by my circumstances. I focused on my dentist's face, his tired, wrinkled, brown eyes, a spot of dirt in his eyelashes that seemed to always to be on the verge of falling into my mouth. The absurdity of it made me smile, which helped my mouth keep open so they could finish cleaning before the hour was up. Driving away from the clinic, after being given strict instructions to brush frequently before my next appointment, I marveled at my triumph. It hadn't been easy, but the hour of pain had ended. So, to celebrate, I passed through a gas station and picked up a can of my favorite soda.
All right. So this is a really good story. I love how the prose of the story really establishes the violation that getting your teeth clean really feels like. And I love how mentally conscious this main character is. How they're trying to move out of the way of this person just like grinding their teeth, but still getting pricked, still getting prodded. And I also like how it seems that the doctor working on them really doesn't care, because I don't know if I told you, but I just recently went to go and get my teeth cleaned, and that is exactly how it feels. That they could not care less about anything that's really happening to you, and it really feels like they're like scrubbing barnacles off of the side of a boat. Like it's that level of caring. So yeah, this story really hit home very much so. just the constant thinking, the sense of being violated, and then just wanting to relax and like drink a soda afterwards. So yeah, overall, I just really dig this story. Yeah.
Yeah, I think everyone has maybe not horror stories about dentists, but definitely uncomfortable times. It's interesting because I don't know, it's very like intimate. It's so much maneuvering inside of your mouth.
Yes.
It's also, you know what, I think what it is for me is that it's such an active role on the part of the person being like helped. Like when you go to the doctor, like you don't really have to do much. You just, just stay still or maybe like say, like there's not a lot of effort involved usually. Whereas with the dentist, it's like a test of endurance all the way through, right?
Because you have to control your tongue. You have to bite down on 1,000 different pieces of metal. Yeah.
Which is interesting. I always had a problem with the light going in my face because as a kid, and we'd always go in the morning and I'd be really tired. And then just like, I don't know, there was something about a bright light shining in my face that made me want to fall asleep. Yeah. I think probably because I was closing my eyes. Yeah. And it was like, try not to fall asleep while sharp metal things are inside of my mouth. And it's
also a bright light. Yeah.
Yes. So
and the worst part, not to divert from the story, but the worst part is when they have to like basically check the pockets around your teeth. So then they would take that like really sharp tool and literally stick it into that spot between your teeth and your gums and just pull it just to see how far it goes. And they'll do that for your entire mouth. Just ugh.
Is that what that is?
Yeah, hate it.
Okay. I wasn't... Alright. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, y'all. Anyway, let's talk about what actually is going on in the story. So, I think it'd be interesting to identify some of the purposes. I think, like, one thing is just conveying how uncomfortable it is for this and how much, like, they're being poked and prodded. Which I think is a major factor. And I think another thing is, especially right at the end, just being like, this person had trouble taking care of their teeth this year, and then endures this horrible thing as a consequence of their actions, kind of, and then doesn't seem to learn anything from it, which I think is really funny.
Yeah, definitely. And definitely drinking these sodas is probably what got them there in the first place, but. I really do like that ending, not only because it is funny, but it also is this sort of like act of rebellion that this character is going through in face of the doctors not only being very cold towards them, but also hurting them, poking them, and prodding them.
That's interesting. I hadn't considered it that way, but I like it.
Yeah. To where like. This might not be the main thing, but this could be one of the big causes as to why their teeth aren't really that good, because the act of actually keeping your teeth clean to their standards is more painful and uncomfortable than as pleasant as drinking a nice fizzy pop.
Yeah. So one thing I think is, obviously this is do the right thing. So not every story is going to have like a cohesive theme already pulled together, right? Because this is spontaneous. But I think expanding on what that, like really making that last like joke really be like the last real hit of a theme that's set up in the rest of the story, right? I think it's great that like you're describing as a act of rebellion, because that's exactly how it could be characterized. Like throughout this, like being told to obey, don't move or I'll hurt you kind of stuff. Sort of finding an act of rebellion of like, I'll hurt myself, thank you very much. You can't tell me what to do, or whatever else.
I mean, I think really like with this story, the only thing that is the only thing that I think can be done to sort of improve it is that, so this main character has a really strong voice here, you know, a really strong sense of self, and I would have liked to sort of step outside of their head sometimes. I mean, I know that there's so much happening to them and it is very focused, but I would have maybe liked a moment where they're getting their like teeth cleaned and then the doc is trying to talk to them, because that happens way too much while you're in that chair. Their fingers are deep in your mouth,
yes,
and they're just talking to you.
Okay, I see what you mean. So you're saying like to have a bit more of the like physical reality rather than just the like musings and stuff.
Exactly, yeah. Even though I do like the musings, I think something that can really ground it and also really improve the severity or the grossness of like what is really happening is that we stay connected to this reality, you know? Also, you know, hey, I would love to figure out why isn't their mouth clean? You know, maybe they're worried like, I don't want them to say something about my smoking habit because I know that I smoke much. You know, just like maybe them going in there with a lot more apprehension mixed with that dread would just make it a little bit more grounded for me.
So, I think you have a point about the grounding, because there's the moments that really felt good to me where like when we got a lot of sensation, like those sharp, you know, pains. Like I really love the pain moving like arrows through my skull. Like I it's bad. I don't like it. But some of the other stuff, like the dentist resorted to holding my jaw still with his other hand. So I really like the next part of the sentence, which is gloved fingers finding the soft folds of skin in my face. That's great because like we feel those fingers. But I think like even going just a little bit further of like describing the texture of rubber on your face, or saying like, or just taking out I forget what part of grammar it is, but the phrase the dentist resorted to holding. Obviously, I think it's a good structure. It makes sense. It carries across multiple things, not just what he's doing, but like the resorted to, it has some connotations. That's good information. But if you take that out and just have the dentist gripped my jaw still with his other hand, right? That's like a lot more
visceral, aggressive,
and direct, because you are removing the distance of resorted to, right? Of I think like infinitive verbs like holding feel less present than like single action verbs. Like resorted is a single action verb, but because it's describing another verb, that it does create that distance. And that's not like, I'm not necessarily talking about specifically that example, but like using direct action verbs to describe sensations, I think is really good. And really makes this feel more grounded. Like an example of it being the sensation bringing us into the scene really well is the next paragraph. The blinding light attached to the chair penetrated my semi-closed eyelids. So that act, I felt that. I know what that feels like to have like this super bright light just like messing with your vision almost.
Yeah.
So I really like those parts. And I think, this is a really good nonfiction piece. I think this is a great example of just like, take an innocuous thing that's happened to you and just reflect on it a little bit. Like it's just an unpleasant experience, but it's like very normal. But we can get a lot of meaning out of it, right? The stuff about modern medicine being so unnatural feeling, but also like it is necessary, over a future period. Although maybe it doesn't feel necessary. Yeah, there's a lot you can draw from even a dentist visit.
Yeah, definitely. And I really like this story. Definitely is bringing forth a lot of strong sensations that I hate feeling. But thank you so much to FlowerPriest for allowing us to read your story on the podcast. Yeah,
absolutely. All right, let's get into the listener submitted stories.
The first story we are going to be talking about this week is by Glittering Coast with the Golden Child.
Yeah. So, before we get into actually the stories proper, like, I think people were probably like a little bit intimidated by having to write nonfiction. And that's totally understandable considering, like, I think it probably is a bit easier not to, not to be limited in your topic or like the way that you're approaching, text. So that's totally okay, and I understand that people. I'm not going to tell people like just don't worry about it, and just do something rather than nothing. But like, because I understand that you do want to challenge yourself as just like a feeling of not feeling like you have something to write about, and that's totally normal. Totally understand it. And I would just invite y'all to. Don't worry too much about what the topic is. It doesn't have to be something super like serious. It doesn't have to be something super heavy, especially because this challenge is going on for a whole 4 weeks, right? So it's totally okay if you just like start talking about your day or about just an average thing. Like I would say don't overthink what your topic is for your nonfiction, Mm-hmm. And yeah, not to worry too much about it. So this story, The Golden Child, is a self-reflection on how, the main character grew up, being held up as like this perfect child in every way, with this like light shining on them. They were the golden child, and they're described basically as like actually having skin of gold, or maybe like pottery, something that can crack because that's what happens. Because as they grow up, the light that was on them goes away. Whenever the light that's on them goes away, they crack. And eventually that spotlight just like leaves, and they're reflecting on like the relationship to their siblings, who have sort of suffered from being in the shadow, and that also hurts them. And we have this refrain going on of not all that glitters is gold. And as they talk about how they're like feeling like they're missing pieces, something really bad happens to them, and they sort of like shatter. And so they're trying to rebuild themselves up. They're trying to protect themselves going forward, but having a hard time of it. And they sort of express this feeling of like no one fully understands what has happened to them and what they've like lost. I really like this section closer to the end of when it's I think talking about like romantic partners. Some say that the cracks show character that she is more beautiful with them, but they didn't know her when she was whole. And I think that's a really strong and a bit sad of reflection on that sentiment. Uh-huh. And we finish off. She wants to be the golden child, to live up to the standards in others' minds, and yet not all that glitters is gold.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So of course this is a really strong story. And I love how it just immediately brought me in with the concept of this golden child and how much it spends explaining the expectations of this child and like how and like why they are looked at as this golden child. And yeah, I really do like how much this is, of course, focused on this main character, but also branches out to everything else that is affecting this main character. And we slowly see them sort of wrestling with these expectations and then, of course, shattering, and I just really enjoy not only that this story is, willing to go there and is willing to be very vulnerable in that aspect and really take us through that, but at the same time spending the bulk of it talking about the after, talking about what it's like to actually be cracked and trying to put those pieces back together. And I also too really do enjoy that like last section because it really speaks to me about trying to find someone who either has those same cracks or has the glue that can put it together. How this main character does feel that they are fractured, that, you know, they are broken, and that it's hard to find someone who is okay with that, who is accepting of that, or has gone through something very similar. So yeah, I think that this story overall is just really expressing these really deep emotions through this reframe to where it's almost storytelling like, you know. And I think that the repetition that's really present within the middle section does help with the flow of the story and sort of bringing us back to the core of it, is that this golden child is now fractured, and then they don't really know where to go from there. So yeah, overall, I really loved reading this, and it pulled me in very deeply, and I just loved everything that was happening within it.
Yeah, I think the refrain that's going on there, not all that glitters is gold. I think that's a good one. I like how it's sort of being used to reflect and how that meaning is sort of changing. I think focusing even more on that, I think might, like, what is the metaphor with that, and how can we explore that that idea of not all that glitters is gold, I think would be a good place to look at. But yeah, I think the sort of self-reflection is exactly what we want from a nonfiction piece. I think it's great.
Thank you so much to Glittering Coast for bringing us this story and allowing us to talk about it. But all right, up next is by Blari345 with A Cold Experience, Part 3.
So this is from that sort of magical party that went into the woods, and they're going to find this beast, and that is exactly what happens here. We have these 5 members of this adventuring party. They go into the woods to find this beast, and we see it, and it's really horrible. This mutated, you know, like a desiccated looking thing. It looks like really like unhealthy. And so they start to fight it, but the main character like notices that something's wrong. But it's too late. They're already fighting it, and it seems to have like this ability to sap all of the energy from someone, all of the livelihood. And so without even much violence necessary, it totally incapacitates basically everyone, and it is inflicting violence. Like, people are clearly like bleeding and dying. But the main character is able to run away, leaving the rest of the party probably to die behind, and basically just the main character and the mage who gives them a boost of energy. They're the only ones that are able to escape.
Yeah, so I really do like how the tension within this piece is being set up. The description is really great at sections. It is sparing, but when it really needs to really paint this this picture, it's really there for it. And I love how the, I guess, fear of this beast grows over time, and then as party members start to get slashed and start to bleed out and die, I was really there for that tension, and that was the main thing that really brought me through this. How this beast is more of a daunting task than I thought it would be in the first place. So yeah, overall, I think that this story is just a really great lesson in tension, really building on top of itself, and also releasing at like certain points so that we're not really bored with it. So really great job overall.
Yeah. I'm interested in that Blari345 like went forward and got most of their adventuring party killed, that they weren't shy about that. And I really like the description of this beast, because it is really horrifying looking. All like skin and bones and a mix of a bear and a deer. Yeah, it's good.
Well, all right, our final story for this week is by Excalibur, with a untitled poem.
Yeah, so this is the same person that we read their poem on the podcast just a bit ago. And they again did calligraphy. It's very beautiful. And it's just these two stanzas, yes, of how do you summarize a poem, right?
Yeah.
So it's sort of a dialogue between, not dialogue. It's directed at another subject that I think figuring out what that subject is kind of the point of, or a major factor in figuring out the meaning of the poem. But the end sort of, the second stanza to me sort of has this feeling of like increasing regret, as sort of like an outside force keeps them from being able to like move on or realize something. It's a complicated web of feelings. It's very hard to summarize a poem without just like analyzing it entirely.
Yeah. I mean, like, overall, I really do love how this poem is, of course, pointed at someone, but it also it gives off this sense of being very trapped, and how this person is really pining for that connection, it seems. But at the end of the day, it's their selves that is holding their self back. It is their regrets. It is their helplessness. And
yeah, there's that last line, fenced in by a will far from my own, I think is really interesting. I'm not entirely sure what the meaning is there. Yeah, like, to me, I have that connection to like my depression and stuff. It feels like it's not my own will that keeps me from doing stuff, but it sort of is at the same time. There's just a distance.
Yeah, and you're distant from that, but either if it is from you or feeling that is not a part of you, it's still keeping you back. It's keeping you in this box. It's keeping you from making that connection, you know? So yeah, I mean, of course, when it comes to poems, the best way to really understand it is to go deeper into a analysis. But of course, overall, this poem does a great job at establishing this tone right out of the gate, and then giving us other pieces for us to possibly put this puzzle together. But really, really great job overall.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Poetry is like very much like a different genre than nonfiction, but like it also is all nonfiction.
Yeah.
Like, even, I mean, I guess it's kind of getting to a point of like everything being a reflection of reality, because like even poetry that is overtly like fictional in subject, like if you had a poem about werewolves, right, it's also actually about real life, right? Because that's just like where you pull the meaning from and where the meaning ends up, right?
Yeah.
But that doesn't, but like at the same time, nonfiction can have like metaphors too, right? So it's not like you can't have metaphors be nonfiction, right? And then fiction also like doesn't happen, but also is a reflection of reality. So it kind of really, I don't know, it's making me think about how these genre lines are kind of
blurry,
sort of arbitrary, or not arbitrary, but they are a lot blurrier than we think.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, 100%. But
okay, let's wrap up. Thank you everyone for submitting.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you to Glittering Coast.
Thank you to FlowerPriest.
And thank you, Blari345.
And thank you to Excalibur. If you want to be like all of these wonderful writers and submit your story to Do the Right Thing, you can do that by going to Reddit at /r/DoTheRightThing. All you have to do is sit down for 30 minutes and write a complete short story using 3 or 4 randomly generated words.
That's right. And if you want to see the words as soon as they come out, the best place to do that would be to follow us on Twitter at RightThingCast. You can turn on that notification bell and get the notification whenever it comes out. You can also go on the Discord where we discuss our stories, talk about how best to talk to each other and give critique and things. And it's a good place to discuss doof things, and it's free, so you can just go do that. If you have any questions, like how to get into the Discord, and you forgot how to do that, you can send us an email at rightthinkcast@gmail.com.
Exactly. And if you want to support us and everything else happening in Doof, you can do that by donating to the Doof Media Patreon. All you have to do is donate $10 or more per month to not only get the ability to vote on everything upcoming in Doof, but you'll also get access to exclusive bonus content.
That's right. Of course, there's plenty going on. If you didn't catch the game club on Into the Breach, which was just this last weekend, or the book club on A Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, those are available. Well, speaking of the bonus content, I'm very excited because next week, on the 18th, is the next The High Ground release, which is one of my favorites of our bonus content. So if you haven't already joined at that level, that would be a great time. So because you would have I forget how many episodes they have now, but it's a solid amount, and they're really, really, really funny. And of course, so much else going on at Doof Media. Still, What to Say, covering the OC, which is a wonderful, a comedic podcast, very wholesome. It's really nice to just Scott and Elise have just a wonderful rapport, and now they have a kid, which is wild. So if you want to hear about what that's like, go listen to What to Say.
Nice. Well, all right. I think it's time to roll into next week's words.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I went ahead and rolled them. Would you like me to say?
Oh, yes.
them?
Can you please tell me what next week's words are?
Next week's words are final, serve, sin, and ride.
Okay. So final, as in the end, the ending of anything, really. It could be a final as in... Yeah, it could be a final as in a test. The final as in finale. So yeah.
The final match in a tournament.
Yes. And the next word is what?
Serve.
Serve. So to serve, like the movie You Got Served, basically it is to...
I thought by basically you were going to launch into a summary of what that movie was like.
Yeah. Hey, it's a great movie. You need to watch it.
Okay.
But yeah, serve. It is to do a service for someone else or something else. And yeah, I think that's the typical definition.
If you wanted to make it a servant, that probably would be okay. You can also serve in tennis. So if we're talking about finals, if anyone has a nonfiction story about them being in a tennis tournament or watching one, that's an option. But you serve the tennis ball. I think it's also the same thing in volleyball as well.
Yes.
Net-based games.
Yeah, all the net-based, beach-based games. Do you play tennis at a beach?
No.
Okay, no.
Well, I mean, you could, but it wouldn't be on the beach. You can't.
It'd be on a tennis court.
But you could play ping pong on the beach.
Yeah. Beach pong?
Beach pong. That's volleyball.
Basically. Next up is sin. Sin, it is a wrongdoing. Typically, it follows a Christianic religious ideal. Sins, as in, murder, adultery, all of that jazz. Sin is basically just a bad thing that one does. And what's the last one?
Ride.
Basically to go somewhere without you actually being the pilot and or driver.
Well,
you ride in the car.
You could be the person that's piloting it. If it's a horse, you're riding a horse.
Well, yes. I guess I was thinking more so when it comes to motorized vehicles, because I guess you don't ride a car. Yeah, and you would pilot a plane, not ride a plane. Even do you ride a plane, or are you a passenger on a plane? So I don't know. The commonality between horse and motorcycle and bike, to me, is that you're sitting on top of it. You're not enclosed by it. That's true. That's the overlap I see. Yeah, but you also ride in a car. But you're in a car. You don't ride a car. I see that. Okay. That's a good point. So riding is inherently to be on some sort of vehicle or some sort of transportative a device, but you have to be on top of it, typically.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. And we're not going to talk about that type of writing that is a sin.
Oh, yes. No. None of that. So tell me, what is your story for next week?
Good question. You did. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the final ride. So it was the final ride of Maximum Ride, which is the protagonist of... Oh, were you? Yes. I haven't even read Maximum Ride, so I can't even make like a good reference. I'm sorry.
It's very bad.
Well, okay, fine. It's Minimum Ride. Ooh. Minimum Ride is he's the alter ego of Maximum Ride. It's a final ride. Sorry, I keep repeating myself instead of actually telling a story. He is doing horse tennis. So you ride, a lot of riding, where you serve the tennis ball while riding a horse. It's just like a very, very, very long, tennis court, like the fence just keeps going. And so you ride the horse along the fence. And so you served it, then someone, he like hit the horse too hard with the racket. He actually like missed the ball and hit the horse's head with the racket. And that is a mortal sin in horse tennis. And he's been banned from the sport forever. And also from horses. Horses universally hate him. So that was the final ride of Minimum Ride in horse tennis. That's my story.
That's kind of crazy. I didn't know there was horse tennis first and foremost, but it's kind of horrible what Minimum Ride did to that horse. Yeah. That actually didn't that happen in the Olympics? Basically, not with the tennis racket, but like there was a woman during like some horse-based sport. She like hit the horse too hard, and then the horse hated her, and so like she wasn't able to do really anything. I mean that seems very plausible, but I don't know if I've heard about that.
Yeah.
Huh. Yeah, hey, horses have feelings too. So my story next week is going to be fan fiction of the very popular movie Drive. This one's called Ride. Basically, this takes place after the movie. Granted, I don't really remember how that movie ended, but basically, Ryan Gosling's character, instead of being a getaway driver, he is now a server at a local diner. And it's actually a very slow movie, very very introspective when he's just sort of grappling with his previous sins, because he's actually killed like quite a bit of people. So he's pretty much doing that for the entire 2 hours. What were the first two words?
The only one you have left is final.
Yeah. So this will act as the final chapter of his life, because sadly he gets so depressed that he goes to a bridge and he is about to jump, but then off in the distance he sees a car speeding by, and then he sort of realizes that his true calling is to be a getaway driver once again, and this goes into Drive 2, Drive Harder.
So the name of the movie is Ride, Drive 2, Drive Harder.
No. The name of this movie is Ride, but the sequel to Drive is Drive 2, Drive Harder. So, this is a sequel technically, but it's not a proper sequel.
So it's like a branch.
Yeah, pretty much. Like people don't have to see this movie if you're going to see Drive 2, Drive Harder.
So this is part of the Drive extended universe, is what you're saying.
It's the Drive CU, the DCU.
This is Drive Legends.
Oh, yes. It's the Drive Saga.
Drive Saga. All right, that's it. That's all we have. Yeah. We did the right thing. Well, Thank you so much.
Goodbye.
I think you're wonderful. Yeah. I adore every one of you listeners.
Yes, please
Truly.
Come to my house. We'll have a party.
Legitimately, I mean, it would be really creepy, but if someone reached out, was like, I'm in Texas. Do you want to get a coffee? I'd probably say yes.
Yeah, as long as
if I'm not in New York.
Yeah, a very central place.
Exactly. All right, bye.
All right.